And welcome back to Fresh Outlook on TWB. It's been 10 years since the U.S. invasion of Iraq, so is the Middle East any safer? I want to throw that question out to the panel, but specifically, let's discuss some of the medical issues involved. Medical reports suggest that the rates of cancer and birth defects, listen to this, are now worse in Iraq than in Hiroshima after the atomic bomb. Is anything being done to address this issue and sort of helping those who are suffering? So we hear, Rachel.
Yeah, I'd love to address this question. So I'm part of a coalition of veterans and a civil society in Iraq, and we've now brought this issue. We've started a campaign called The Right to Heal. They're uniting in their struggle to try and heal from this war. And I had the opportunity last week to talk to an Iraqi woman who, she works for the OFI, which is an organization in Iraq that promotes women's rights. And she said that the women that she works with are now not having children because they're so scared because of the number of birth defects, and that's just tragic. It's heartbreaking, and the U.S. government has essentially ignored it. We need part of what this coalition and this campaign is doing, and what we're requesting and demanding is that the U.S. invest in studies and rebuild the infrastructure in Iraq to address these terrible birth defects and cancer rates.
I mean, how could you argue with that? But is it realistic? Is it really going to happen? How high on the priority list is that? What do you think, Michael?
I mean, unfortunately, it's pretty low. I mean, I think the fact that most of us are just hearing about this, as Rachel's bringing this up now, that you're not hearing about this in any type of mainstream news, is, again, this goes back to the issues of this doesn't, sell well in campaigns, doesn't sell well among the American people, when we're already estimating the cost of this war, just looking at American rebuilding efforts, veteran care, at $4 trillion. The idea that you would sell the American people, we're going to spend more money on Iraqis who, from the American perspective, as Dee Dee was saying, that from the American perspective, you think, we've helped save this country, now that we're going to spend more money. It's highly unlikely unless you really see a large suit go before the UN, and even in that case, or the Hague, and even in that case, I would highly doubt it. And it's tragic.
Right, but you have to say, but as bad as conditions are now, aren't they better than what they were under Hussein? Absolutely.
Well, I think for women especially, sure. I mean, women, look, it was very, very bad under Saddam Hussein. I mean,
trafficking's up, prostitution's up,
gender-based
violence.
And that's bad, but for you to think that it was better under Saddam Hussein, I mean, I just don't know how you can even say that with the way he treated his people.
Why do you think this was a good effort, Hussein, Rachel?
Well, I actually didn't say that. She's the one that put words in my mouth.
But you said, no, you said it was worse. You did say that.
Gender-based violence is certainly worse. I mean, there was essentially, the prostitution rates there have skyrocketed. The number of children that are being trafficked, the abuse, the terrible torture that's gone on in prisons and detention centers.
But that's not a result of the war.
It is a result of the war.
It is not a result of the war. I don't know why you're saying that.
Really?
Why would you think that? I mean, because it was bad before. They were treated so badly. Saddam Hussein, terribly disrespectful to his people.
Let's go to detention centers that are operated by U.S. supported forces, and let's look at the type of torture that's gone on to women. Women being raped by.
You're saying Americans are responsible for that?
American soldiers have raped women in these detention centers.
I don't even know why you're going there. I mean, now you're dissing our soldiers. I mean, obviously, things like that happen. In fact, that's terrible.
Well, actually, one out of 3 U.S. military women is actually sexually assaulted.
Well, that's true.
Yes.
But don't put it all on the United States military. That it's all our fault.
No, it's definitely not the. There's a structural problem here. Think about it. Last week, there was reports, James Steele, I don't know if you saw these reports, but James Steele was basically the eyes and ears of Rumsfeld on the ground in these detention centers. And according to reports, he knew exactly what was going on in them. So there's a direct link between the high-level officials and the violence.
So now you're saying Donald Rumsfeld thought it was okay for women to be raped by U.S. soldiers? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that he knew about it.
Well, I don't believe that.
I'm sorry.
So do you think the Iraqi people, specifically Iraqi women, would have been better off today if Saddam Hussein was still in power? I want to hear Rachel's response to that.
Yes or no?
So I don't want to make comparisons between Saddam and the U.S. The point is that we went in there saying that we're going to bring democracy, we were going to bring women's rights, we were going to bring rule of law. That hasn't happened. And the fact that we now are not willing to clean up the mess that we made and invest in rebuilding the infrastructure and putting money into these studies is, in fact, a hypocrisy.
The United States USAID puts billions of dollars into all kinds of countries. Our country is the most generous in the world. So, to say that we're not doing anything, I think is wrong and unfair. I'm sorry to think it's not enough. It's never enough.
Well, just come to your point about, is it better now than to be under Saddam Hussein? I mean, I think that's a fair question, but I slightly changed the question, which is that it's hard to know what it'd be like under Saddam Hussein. What I think the question is it worse than it could have been? And the answer to that is an absolute yes, which is to say that if again, if Americans have these ideals of which you're speaking, which I completely agree with actually, and again, today will not be the day I shed a tear over the demise of Saddam Hussein, but what could have been done to actually have made sure it didn't descend into sectarian violence, part of which has turned part of Iraq into essentially an Iranian-style state where women have seen a loss of rights. I mean, the Ba'athist state and all its horrors was a largely secular state that actually did promote a better system of female rights than you would see in the Islamic Republic of Iran. We're now seeing Iraq move in a more fundamental direction with either the sort of an Iranian-type Shia state, with a Sunni-type Salafist state. Right. Both of these bad for women's rights, for children's rights.
But what about the existing violence in Iraq? It goes on and on and on. What are we going to do to stop it? How do we stop it?
We're out. I mean, there is no we at this any point. I mean, the United States is not involved in Iraq anymore. So it's really, what will the Iraqi people do? But let me just put one other point.
It's chaos. What are they going to do?
I saw this in a recent article, and I think it's worth bringing up in this context, which is, would we have seen an Arab Spring without the Iraq War? And there's actually strong belief that the Iraq War, by actually defeating the strongest military dictatorship in the Middle East, actually opened the door for the Arab Spring. On the other hand, we now see this civil war in Syria, which is seeing probably will actually surpass the amount of casualties that we've seen in Iraq. But it's possible that the reason why we're seeing all these casualties in Syria is because there's no U.S. force to stop them. So it's, to a certain extent, the U.S. military did provide a purpose by being there of, while it was there with the number of troops from 2007 to 2008, actually damped down on the level of sectarian violence. The problem is it took 4 years for that to happen. And in that 4-year gap, we're seeing all these problems that Rachel's referring to.
But now the problems are just coming. I mean, there's a lot of violence that continues in Iraq. We're out. So now what? I mean, I feel like we're going backwards. Rachel, what do you think?
I mean, the war certainly is ended in terms of the official recognition of it, but for soldiers, for veterans returning from the war, for Iraqi civilians, the war is not over. They continue to live with these problems. They continue to struggle to heal. They continue to demand accountability that will never come.
Okay.
Well, and in agreement, I think we need to try to take care of veterans as much as we can, but when you sign up to be in the military, I mean, you know that these things can happen.
Do you think the public's turned a blind eye to these Iraqi veterans?
No, I don't think so, but I would love to see more money going to aid for veterans and solar panels and some of these boondoggles that we put money into. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for our vets. I think we need to take care of our United States veterans. There's no doubt about it, so I'm with you on that. But you know, I think Americans are proud of what we've done. I think they're proud of our country. You know, the Middle East is always difficult. It's always going to be. It always has been. Is
the Middle East safer? That's the main question.
I think a peace through strength is a good policy, and that's with the United States. And as you put it, when we were there, you know, it was better, and it's tough. I mean, we can't be everywhere at once, but you know, we can try our best.
But you look 10 years later, is the Middle East now safer? Look what's going on in Syria. Is this a good thing, a bad thing, Rachel?
I mean, just looking at Saddam Hussein, he was a secular government, and now that he's been taken out and there's been no effort to really build infrastructure since then, all these groups that weren't there before, all these terrorist organizations that weren't there before are now slowly infiltrating into Iraq. And of course, we're not safer. You know, there's no way that can even be a viable argument.
So this was a total wash, a total waste of 10 years in your opinion?
And in my opinion, yes.
Michael?
You know, I struggle with this question because I really do fundamentally believe that Saddam Hussein was just a genocidal military dictatorship.
Oh, he was.
And there's no, I mean, again, even Iraqis would say, there's probably no way he would have been overthrown internally, only externally. So we really get left in a situation that says, are we satisfied in a state where, you know, he and his sons would have ruled forever, or are we satisfied with the chaos that is today? And the same thing in Syria. It's like Syria, living under a brutal dictatorship, has now descended into civil war. So do you say the brutal dictatorship was better, or do you say civil war conditions was better? And it's like,
it happens in the Middle East a lot, unfortunately.
So we have to step back and say they're both terrible, and comparing, it's like, but
the best of the
what you
worst.
can hope is, in the transitions are often terrible, but you need transitions to get to a better situation. So to me, again, as I step back 10 years from now, my biggest regret is we had an opportunity to make a good transition and we didn't take it, and that is, to me, the biggest tragedy.
That's Michael's final thought. Rachel, what is the road to healing at this point? Real quickly, final thought.
Well, I think I think in Iraq,
the road to healing in Iraq.
I think that, I mean, there's a lot of ways. I think first is the acknowledgement that this war was, illegitimate, that we went on premises that we haven't upheld. We haven't upheld.
Okay, but how does that heal things?
That heals things because, well, on two levels. for Iraqis, it legitimizes their feelings of mistrust against the United States government and helps to build towards more trust. And our recognition that this is a terrible idea and that we should have never been in Iraq will help to build, I believe, a renewed sense of faith in how we move forward.
I don't think that's ever going to happen, but it's a nice idea. Dee Dee, final thought?
I think the world is a much better, safer place without Saddam Hussein and his evil sons. So thank you, President Bush, for doing that, and thank you to our United States military for the great job they did.
Okay, and some might say thank you for the birth defects and the violence against women and the situation, just to counterpoint. Thanks, guys. Again, the freshest outlooks of the weekend. I can't thank you enough. Some terrific conversation. It looks like we're out of time. Thanks once again to our all-star panel. If you have a fresh outlook, we want to hear about it. Let us know on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page, @AbruTV, #FreshOutlook. I'm TWB, or @TWBrill. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Fresh Outlook with more Fresh Outlooks. Okay.